the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Hello, welcome to our December show of So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. My name is Dilip Barman in Durham, North Carolina. For those of you who watch us regularly, welcome back. And if you're new, a special welcome to you. We've been having these shows for about 2.5 years now. We started at the beginning of the pandemic. A bunch of us Food for Life instructors. Food for Life is a nutrition education program of the Physicians Committee. We have over 300 instructors around the world, and more just recently were certified, who teach classes to keep us healthy. They're evidence-based classes where we talk about nutrition and we cook. We make all these wonderful dishes that are healthy and easy and tasty. We have classes to keep you healthy, and we have classes for specific conditions like cancer, to help manage and possibly reverse cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure. So check us out, fflclasses.org. See if there's an instructor near you. We also have some classes that are online. So we do these shows, some of us Food for Life instructors. There's about 8 or 9 of us, I think, today, and we go kitchen to kitchen. We spend about roughly 10 minutes per kitchen. So today is So Many Holiday Treats, and I want to remind you that we've done several holiday shows. You can come to somanycooks.com and look at our shows, and you can look at the recipes from any of the past shows, including the holiday shows. And today we have our recipes for you as well. I think we have 8 or 9 people today. We're going to be making dishes like chocolate peppermint brownies, a rich chocolate pudding, vegan flan, everything's vegan, everything's whole food plant-based in our show, pear upside-down cake, maple chili glazed squash, and more. I'm making a stovetop apple crunch. Apples are a good source of fiber. You've heard that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And I love this apple. It's called a sugar bee apple. I don't know if you can see the label. I took the label off the others, but I left this one with a label. I love the sugar bee. It's juicy, sweet, and it's just wonderful. I buy extra for my neighbor. It's now my neighbor's favorite apple. Let's actually get going cooking. I'll tell you more about the nutrition as we cook. So I'm going to start with some rolled oats. So let me just get a spoon. So I'm going to take 5 tablespoons of rolled oats. Rolled oats are wonderful, great sources of fiber and magnesium. I'm going to put 5 tablespoons. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to optionally toast them. So there we go. There's the oats. Okay. Now this is optional, but it adds some nice flavor. So I'm going to put this on a medium heat. Okay. And to save time, while it's cooking, I'm going to pick one of these apples. Let's pick this one. And I'm going to cut the apple into 1/2-inch pieces. It smells so good. Okay. And what you want to do with the oats is you want to occasionally mix them up a little bit. There's very little risk of the oats burning, especially on medium heat. You want to go for a minute or two. You're going to start smelling the toasted oats, which I'm just barely getting a whiff of right now. Okay. Now the apple I'm cutting into roughly 1/2-inch cubes. It's not critical. You can go a little bigger. I wouldn't go any smaller because it might get mushy. So, but it'd be nice if they were reasonably uniform. Okay. I love this dish. Many of us like apple crisp, but you can't make apple crisp in 5 minutes, which is what I'm going to do. As I was preparing this last week, I was trying to figure out what I was going to make, and I came up with this. I invented this dish. It's based on similar things I've done in the past. My wife said, "Philip, that's too easy. You should do something more complicated." And I thought about it, and I said, well, during holiday cooking, a lot of people are making lots of dishes. It's nice to have easy dishes. So I think you will agree this is a pretty easy dish. And I'm proud if it's being easy. I don't think that's anything I'm going to apologize for. This is something that if you have children, children can help. I could have chopped the apple before showtime, but as you probably know, apple oxidizes quickly. It doesn't really matter because it's going to be cooked, but if you're interested in maintaining the, okay, and the oats are nice and toasted. I wish you could smell. They smell great. I'm going to go ahead and turn the pan off, and I'm going to put all the oats in a bowl. And it's okay if some of the oats stay behind. It's not a problem. So I'm going to be that careful. But let's get the oats out. Okay. There we go. Smells so good. Toasted oats are great. If you make oatmeal, this is a great way to start. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the pan on again, on medium. And I'm going to put the apple in. Almost done chopping. I'll put the apples that are done. I'm using a high-quality stainless pan. You want to use a heavy skillet. Stainless would be the best. You can hear the apple sizzling. And as I was saying, that apples do oxidize, and if you're concerned about the color of the apple, then you'll want to coat them with some lemon or lime juice, and that'll slow down the oxidation. But these are cooking, and I'm not really concerned about that, but I could add a little bit of lime if I wanted to. I was considering adding a little bit of tangerine or orange. Okay, so there's my apple. Okay. Oats, of course, are a great source of manganese. There is some magnesium. I think I said magnesium earlier. More than 60% of the daily value in one serving of oats. They're a great source of phosphorus, magnesium, as I said, copper, iron, zinc, folate, several B vitamins, fiber, and antioxidants. Apples are a great source of fiber, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the apples a little bit. Vitamin C, of course. Antioxidants, they have natural sugars. We enjoy eating apples, but because of the fiber and because it's mostly water, the glycemic index is surprisingly low for apples. So enjoy your apples, especially if you're eating them raw. When you cook them down a bit, you can eat a larger quantity, but we're not going to cook them so much. Okay, so I put the apples, and I'm going to put dates in. So I'm going to talk about dates in a minute. I have these pitted deglet dates, which I love deglet dates, and this is optional, but I'm going to use 2 or 3. Now, this date is pretty soft because I've soaked it. If your dry dates are hard, soak them for half an hour in warm water, which is what I did. There's so many kinds of dates. My favorite are called bari dates, and I do have lots of bari dates. I didn't bring them, but I'm just going to chop the dates. 2 or 3 dates is more than enough, and I'm going to put the dates in with the apple. This is optional. Again, dates have a relatively low glycemic index, and they add a nice treat to the apples. And I don't know if you can see on the camera, but the apples are caramelizing. The sugars are coming to the surface, and the color is changing. It's a little bit of brown, but it's more yellow at this point. It's deepening the color. And again, I wish you could smell the smell. It smells so good. So I'm going to stir it occasionally, and I'm going to cover it. And here's actually a trick. Here's the apple core, and if you want to get even more apple flavor, I'm actually going to put the core in, so some of the flavor will come out of that core as well. Let's do a stir. Okay. So let's talk about dates for a second. There's all sorts of cool dates, so let's see if I remember. Here's the pitted deglet dates. This is called a black, not Audibab, I have it written down here. A black Laughlin. This has a pit. This is called a honey date. It's so good. I'm a vegan, I don't eat honey, but it tastes like what I remember honey to be like. This is something that my family likes. I don't love it. It's called a thuri date, and it's hard. There's all sorts of dates. So I use the pitted deglet dates. We're going to use a little bit of nuts in this. Now, nuts are high in fat, so be careful about nuts. If you're eating nuts, don't snack on nuts. I don't know if you can see the apple is basically done. And you can cook this more or less. If you cook it more, the apple will be softer. So as I was saying about nuts, be careful with nuts. They're very nutritive. They have many nuts are strong in omega-3s, which is something you do want to eat, but they're also high in fat. I don't recommend snacking on nuts. I don't recommend taking this big bowl of nuts and keeping it on your armchair and enjoying a sporting event and eating nuts. I don't recommend that. But if you're eating nuts, try no more than a small handful a day of nuts. One thing you're looking for is you want low omega-6 and high omega-3. There's a thing called the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. And you can use pistachios. Pistachios are also high in omega-3s. Let me take a look at my notes to make sure I'm not saying it incorrectly. The walnut is surprisingly, it's closest to 1. You want, ideally, a ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s to be 1 to 1. But pistachios are above 50 or almost 50, and walnuts are around 4. Okay, I'm going to turn the pan off because it looks like it's nice and done. And if you notice, I'm going to take out the apple core. How long was that? Like 3-4 minutes? In my recipe, and we'll share the recipe document with you. In my recipe document, I have recommended 5 minutes, but I think that's done. It looks like a nice roasted apple. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some nuts in. I'm going to put just about 3 half walnuts in, and I'm going to hand break them into chunks. Okay. If you want, you can add 3, 4, or 5. Okay, so I'm going to go with 3. Actually, I'll go with a 4th one. Okay. And then I'm going to add the oats back. These are the toasted oats. I'm going to put them in. I'm going to mix that all in. Now the oats, I like to add at this point because it's going to pick up some of the moisture that the apples have given out. And hopefully this is a little reminiscent of apple crisp without the fat. And I'm going to turn the pan on just for a moment to cook it down just a bit more. But you're basically done. There's not much more left. Okay. If you use pistachios, you may want to use a food processor or a spice grinder to get a rough chop. And then I'm going to let it sit for just a minute, and then I'm going to mix in some vanilla. I love vanilla. And I'm going to mix some cinnamon in. I can put the cinnamon now, actually. Actually, let's go and put the cinnamon in now. So I'm not measuring, but I do have in my recipe suggested measurements for you. By the way, at the end of the show, we have some giveaways. So you can ask questions anytime. I won't see your question until after my segment, but I'd be happy to answer it. My colleagues can answer it in the meantime. And at the end of the show, we'll actually have a Q&A session. And some, but not all of us, will be there for the Q&A. So please ask questions throughout, and then at the end, we'll invite you during the Q&A to ask further questions, and we'll tabulate your names, and then we'll draw 2 people, and you'll get prizes. Okay? So I'm going to call this done. It really smells nice. You can serve it as is. You can make some coconut cream, which I believe my colleague Mark Sorkvenik has demonstrated using chickpea water. We've had a couple creams, so if you want to get a vegan cream and put it on top, you can. You can put a little bit of sweetener like this pomegranate molasses, which is what I'm going to do. Okay? So I'm going to serve my stovetop apple crisp. It really doesn't need sweetener. And I forgot to add the vanilla, didn't I? So let's add a little bit of vanilla. I like to add the vanilla at the end. Let's dump this back in to mix it up, because vanilla is very volatile. So if you cook with vanilla, you're going to lose a lot of the vanilla. Okay? So let's go ahead and reserve this with the vanilla. And as I said, you can add some molasses, but it doesn't really need it. So let me just get a spoon. Easy peasy. This is like a 5-minute dessert. And let's see what it tastes like. It's wonderful. There's a couple other things you could do. You could add some toasted bananas. You could put bananas in and caramelize them. You could add some blueberries. It becomes like a granola. I believe in an earlier show, I did I cooked some fruit on my pan, and you can do that. But I wanted to do something new. So this is with oats and apple, and I wanted to be simple with just a few ingredients, and it's very satisfying and very good. It really doesn't need sweetener. So, Happy New Year. I hope that you've been enjoying our shows. Next week, the Kids in the Kitchen will be on, and then we'll be back. I think it's the second Saturday in January with our January show. So much citrus. Citrus is one of my favorites. I'm really excited about that show. So thanks for joining us. And again, the recipe as I made is enough for about 3 servings, okay, depending on the size of the apple. So next, I'm delighted to introduce my colleague in Illinois, in the Chicago area, Mark Servenick. Mark is making a pear upside-down cake. Take it away, Mark.
Thanks, Philip. Hi, everybody. Mark Servenick here from Let's Eat Great Food. And my website is let'seatgreat.com, or you can find me on Facebook at Let's Eat Great Food. Today, I've made a pear upside-down cake. Nope, not a pineapple upside-down cake, but a pear upside-down cake. Something a little special for the holidays. And to add even a little bit different texture and a little bit deeper, richer flavor, I am using a whole grain white grain, and it is called Frederick wheat. I get my grains from a mill called Janie's Mill. They're organic grains, and the grain comes in a whole grain, so I like using the whole grain because you get the germ and the husk and the bran, and everything gets ground up in the flour that I make, because I do grind my own with this thing called a mock mill. It's Mock Mill 200. It's German made. It's actually got 2 stones in it, just like a regular proper mill. And the grains go in the top here, and then they come out the chute, put a big bowl there, big chute. So you're getting the whole grain, including the husk and the bran and the germ and everything. So it adds even more nutrition to it. So this is my pear upside down cake. Now you're going to assemble this where the pears go on the bottom, of course, and you've got the recipe as well. And the pears go in the bottom, and then the cake batter goes on. So I'm going to unmold this thing, and in this is the white whole wheat flour, the whole grain again, and cornstarch, baking soda, cinnamon, ginger, and of course pears. To moisten the cake, this is a fat-free cake, so there is no additional oil, because as we know, per gram of oil there's 9 calories versus per gram of carbohydrate there's how many? 4 calories. So we've cut the calories out, but this is just as moist as if it was fully oil, be that some kind of canola oil or coconut oil. So I don't like to add any extra fat. I'd rather save the calories for the good stuff like pears and whole grain, and there's also ginger and cinnamon in this. And if you need more moisture in your cake, you just blend up some more pears, and again, that's all in the recipe. So we're just going to uncover this thing, I should say, and take that wonderful parchment paper off, and look up a YouTube on how to cut a nice round parchment paper like this. There's lots of YouTube videos out there on how to cut parchment paper, and so the cake looks like that. You can make all different types of decorations in the top of that. And oh, by the way, after that grain is ground, this is the way it comes out. So from the whole grain, it comes out this really nice, fluffy, soft, fine grain. Again, on this mock mill, you can set the various coarseness of the grain. This basically raises and lowers the top stone to the bottom stone. So the farther away, of course, the coarser, the closer, the more fine the flour is. And I don't sift my flours typically, because I do want to have, again, the entire grain, if you will. So the husk and the germ and the bran and everything that grain has to offer. So there's my cake. And again, you've got the recipe. So I'm just going to give this a little cut here. And it just looks really moist. It smells phenomenal, and you're going to blow your guests away when you make a pear upside-down cake, because most people have never had a pear upside-down cake. A friend of ours made this for us actually on Thanksgiving, and I've never had a pear upside-down cake, and so I'm kind of borrowing this recipe. So there's the wonderful slice, and everybody gets a little slice of pear in that. Let me give this a little bit of a taste. Pears have a natural sweetness to it, so very little additional sugar, very little simple sugar. We've used a mixture of agave and maple syrup in this, and a little bit of the texture, not only from the grain, that whole grain, but also the pear. And I'll tell you what, this is so sweet, soft, and you would think that there's oil in this cake, and there is none. So give it a shot, folks. A pear upside-down cake. Mark Cirkvenick at Let's Eat Great Food. And now I'm going to turn it over to Janin over in Abu Dhabi. Janin, take it away.
And the partridge in a pear tree. Hey Mark, what a nice dessert you've presented to us, and thank you for the introduction. Welcome everybody to my kitchen in Abu Dhabi. 'Tis the season. I just realized, preparing for this show, that I had opened the year in January with a whole bunch of treats made with dates, and it so happens this year I'm closing the year with more treats using dates. But what can I do? I live in the United Arab Emirates, and this is one of their most abundant productions. I'm really lucky because I have access to amazing, delicious varieties of dates. So it's not only the medjool as we know. For example, today I used one of my favorites, halas dates. I prefer them. They're just soft, delicious, sweet, but not overpowering, caramelly. So I can just eat one every hour coming to the kitchen, but I don't, of course. So here we go. I have 2 recipes to share with you today, building up on the 4 I shared back in January. Let's start with the first one. It comes to us from the Minimalist Baker. I love their recipes, and this is a really easy one. You can do it in a jiffy. I used a small food processor, this one of these little jobbies, because here in Abu Dhabi I don't have a big one, and it works with that in it. So you have your dates. I'll remind you, all the recipes are in our recipe booklet online. But basically you put all your ingredients in here. The dates, the cashews, the coconut powder, and what makes this really delicious is cardamom and orange zest and a pinch of salt. So you put them all in there and you blitz them until they reach a crumbly, as you can see, consistency. And this is just fine. You don't want to go any further and make it into a paste. Once you reach this, you can pulse, or you can get it going a little bit more. But if you do it consistently and continuously, it might really turn into a paste, which you don't want for this recipe. So basically then, once it's done, you take 1 tablespoon at a time. I'm going to turn here because I already have a messy cutting board here. And you take them in your hand and just give them a little squish and make them into little balls. They're perfect bite-sized balls. And there you are. This is what it looks like. And they're done. But I have prepared also 2 different types of covers. This is with orange zest and shredded coconut. And this one is basically the same, but it also has cocoa powder in it. So you get that little bit of chocolate fix that you want. I've prepared 2 examples for you. The coconut shredded one, they look very cute and festive, as if they're little snowballs, but with the orange flake. So there you are. You have your little cardamom, orange, and date treats, and the other ones are with cocoa powder, making a mess here. So this is as easy as 1, 2, 3. To this mix, you can also add, to your liking, how much you want, cocoa powder. So the entire little treat has the chocolatey goodness in it. This time I haven't. I tried it on the outside, but it's as good with chocolate inside. So to the recipe I've given in the recipe booklet, you can add about 1/4 of a cup of cocoa powder, or try with less because you can adjust the taste to your liking. The second recipe I have today is a caramel substitute, and here it is. This is just amazing. It's got all the caramelly sweetness of the halas dates, together with some soy milk, and you can use whatever plant-based milk you like, and a little bit of salt. So if you're salt-free, this may not be a recipe for you. However, it is as good without salt as well, but that salty caramel goodness that we so like is amazing. So for this one, I used I'll get my little gizmo. I used the small attachment of my high-speed blender, and I tried something new. You can do it, of course, with dates. You need to pit them if you buy them not already pitted. I did that this morning. I cleaned mine. But here I have the, I guess, luxury or the pleasure of buying date paste. This stuff is like really tough. It's very, very thick and condensed. So it's hard working with it, even in a high-speed blender. But it was a experiment. And I used 1/2 cup of this very, very concentrated date paste, and about 3/4 of a cup of, it was basically 10 tablespoons of soy milk, and I started with 6, and I kept adding, and finally at 10 tablespoons it worked. So I had 1/2 cup of the very thick date paste, 10 tablespoons of soy milk, and about 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And I blitzed it till it's really creamy. And you get this amazing caramel substitute. No butter, no sugar, no added processed sugar. The dates are sugary enough. And this stuff is good as is. You can like really eat it almost like a pudding. But it's also amazing on ice cream. It's amazing on pancakes. You can add it to your oatmeal in the morning. Also, if you go online, there are a lot of recipes using date caramel and going fancier with your recipes, so making things like Mars bars and things like that. So you basically take it and you make a ball like that, and you freeze it, and then you dip them in chocolate and so on. So you never know. I might yet come back with my 3rd episode of sharing date recipes. But this is all from me this time, everyone. It's really a pleasure that we completed another whole year. I wish you all the best during this holiday season with your families. And before I say goodbye, I will pass the baton on to Nancy Manifold in Brighton, England, who has a chocolatey treat for you. Happy holidays from Abu Dhabi. Bye everyone. See you next year.
Thank you, John. Your date recipes look absolutely delicious. I'm Nancy Manifold, and I'm going to show you how I make my rich chocolate pudding. It's a very easy recipe to make. It's quick to make, very few ingredients, and it's perfect after dinner, after Christmas dinner even, for a nutritious, healthy, but delicious pudding dessert. So the 4 ingredients are tofu, maple syrup, cocoa powder, and vanilla. So I'm going to go through that now. And we start with the tofu. Now, tofu, I don't know if any of you have tried tofu before. Tofu is fermented soybeans. I first had tofu at university 40 years ago. And I'm not telling you the story so you can work out my age. There is a point to this. And when I first had it, it was in the residence canteen and it tasted awful. And it was bland and it was mushy. And unfortunately, it put me off for decades after that, put me off tofu. The point of this story is that if you've had tofu before and didn't like it, find a good recipe because it is absolutely delicious. And so this is the silken tofu, which is slightly smoother. So it's 350 grams or 12 ounces. And I've cut the lid off and drained out just a tiny bit of the water. It doesn't have very much water in it. And as you can see, it's a soft consistency, sort of a soft wobbly consistency. So I'm putting this into the high-speed blender, and that's going in there. Now, silken tofu is a fantastic base for sauces and dressings and creamy desserts. It's very nutritious. It's high in protein, high in fiber, and high in antioxidants. It's a very nutritious food. And that's one of the wonderful things about it, because it also takes up whatever flavors you put in with it, because it doesn't have a dominating flavor. So it will pick up whatever flavors you put in, which is why it's a shame 40 years ago at university that whoever made that tofu recipe didn't understand that. And now I have maple syrup, again, for a little bit of sweetener. Just a 1/4 cup of maple syrup, so not very much. And a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. Now, cocoa powder is also very nutritious. So this is a 1/4 cup. This has 9 grams of fiber and 6 grams of protein in it. Cocoa powder is deceptively nutritious, and it's packed with polyphenols, which are antioxidants, which again are very health promoting. It does have some fat in it, but because the cocoa butter has been removed, it doesn't have as much fat as you think. So in this 1/4 cup, there's about 5 grams of fat. And when you think that this is for 4 servings, that's not actually a great deal of fat at all. So that cocoa powder is going in. And then the last ingredient is vanilla. So put that in. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So as you can see, everything that's gone in here is very healthy. The maple syrup does have a little bit of, does have some sugar in it. I appreciate that, but there's not a great deal of maple syrup, and it does help give it a great flavor. So just putting the lid on, and that's all it is. Those 4 ingredients, very easy, very quick to make. And if you have kids, they'd really enjoy making this. Putting in the high-speed blender for there we go. If you're making it yourself, you can blend that for a little bit longer. I don't want to do it too long where you're sitting watching me, but you just blend it. It doesn't take that long. Take that out. And take the lid off. This is the hardest part of the whole recipe, is taking the lid off. It's like an arm workout. we go. And I have a ramekin here. And just pouring it in. It's quite a large ramekin, so I won't put all of it in there. You can make individual portions. This recipe is for 4 people. And so there you have. And so what you do now is put that in the fridge for about 4 hours. So you've got that. And then after 4 hours, you have a nicely set chocolate mousse. And the other thing I would mention is that with those 4 ingredients, you can proportion them as you like. I would recommend being careful with how much cocoa powder you put in, because cocoa powder can have a bitter taste. So I certainly wouldn't put in more than 1/4 cup. You might even want a little bit less. Likewise, you might want a little bit less of the maple syrup, but you can adjust it as you like. And what I thought would be nice here is to put, I have some chopped pear. I have a conference pear, which I have chopped. And you can put what you like on it, or you can have it as is. But I thought because the conference pears are in season, I thought that would be nice. And pear and chocolate go so well together. For that whole bowl, I managed to miss it and not put it on top. There we go. And there we have an absolutely delicious chocolate mousse, chocolate pudding with chopped pear or whatever else you like on it. And as you can see, it's got a gorgeous consistency. So there we go. And thank you very much. And I will pass you over to Susanna Dickman, who is making her peppermint chocolate brownies, continuing the chocolate theme. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. That pudding looks so good. I can't wait to make it for my family. Hi, everyone. My name is Susanna Dickman, and I'm from Evansville, Indiana. Thank you for taking some time on your busy Saturday to watch us cook. You can check me out on Eat Plants Be Well to see I'm going to have some upcoming holiday classes and also some Kickstart classes in January. Today I'm going to make a special treat that I love making for my family during the holiday season. And when I think of holiday treats, I think of peppermint. I love peppermint, and I loved candy canes. As a kid, my mom would put candy canes on our tree to decorate, and oftentimes when they went missing, she always knew who was the one. I had 5 siblings, but she knew who was the one most likely to have eaten them. So I was lucky enough to find some vegan candy canes for my children, and while I don't eat them as much, I do use them to cook with, and we still do decorate our tree with them. But these brownies are very simple to make. It's actually a PCRM recipe that I have just added 2 additional components to, and that is mint and my peppermint candy canes, because it gives it a more Christmassy kind of flavor. I don't know why mint is I associate with Christmas. But we are going to start making these, and I love making these because they just go in the food processor, 1 pan, not a lot of cleanup, and they are so good. So we are going to start with black beans. And I know many of you may have made brownie recipes with black beans, and if you haven't, I guarantee you will not know, you will not taste the beans. Make these for your family, make these for your friends, make these for people who aren't plant-based, and they will ask you for the recipe. And don't tell them it's beans until they see the recipe, and then they're going to be amazed that black beans could make something so delicious. Okay, this is 2 cans of black beans, and I did rinse them and let them dry a little bit. Then we're going to use another ingredient which adds added fiber and nutrients, and that is raspberry jam. Now I found no sugar raspberry jam. I know you can get one, there are some that are reduced sugar, you know, if you don't mind the sugar, but I think there's going to be enough sugar from the next ingredient or enough sweetness from the next ingredient that I add, which is going to be dates. So I have a cup of dates that I just chopped a little bit so that they would blend quicker. So I'm going to put those in. And then I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And let me get that measured. Now, I talked about fiber a little bit. These brownies, 1 serving is going to have 9 grams of fiber. That is, just incredible. And I like knowing that even making a treat, that I'm still eating healthy, fiber-filled foods that are going to keep me on track with my wellness goals of eating plant-based. It's just, I'm very thankful for all these recipes that you're seeing on today's show that, you can have brownies. You can have other things. So let me go ahead and get this mixed up. Okay, let me check it out. If you can hear, the kind of clunking, that's the dates. That's why I cut those up little. And I'm going to mix this some more so I don't have to necessarily do it all. I'm going to add other ingredients to it. So this looks pretty good for now. And let's add the rest of our ingredients and then we will process it more. Now, what makes these so cocoa-y is cocoa powder. And I'm going to add a cup of cocoa powder. And what I like to do, I like to kind of make a space here and leave a little hole, a little well. So I'm going to put my cocoa powder in there so when I can cover it up with my beans so it doesn't get, otherwise it poofs up and it gets everywhere. So let me get a cup of cocoa powder. Oops, let me see if I can do it without spilling it all over. There, I spilled a little bit, but that's okay. And then I'm just going to push some of my beans over on it again so it gets mixed up. The next thing I'm going to add is a little bit of whole wheat flour. I have about a 1/4 cup and 2 tablespoons. And then I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of my mint extract. Oh, I wish you could smell that. It smells so good. You can go up to a teaspoon if you want more minty flavor. I've been experimenting and I started with a 1/4 teaspoon and I found, at least for me, that wasn't enough. So I went with a little more than, or a teaspoon, and I found that maybe was a little too much for me. But again, it's your preference. So you can decide how minty you want it. And remember, we're going to put the candy canes on top too. So that's going to add some more mint. All right. I don't know about you, but I can't cook with cocoa powder and be neat. I just find it gets all over. So please excuse the cocoa powder everywhere. So I'm going to pulse it because, again, I don't want the cocoa powder to get all up, pushed up to the top. But now I'm going to check it out. Okay, it's starting to get, and the color, I'm going to show you, it's starting to get such a dark, rich color. But I'm going to put this on for a little bit and let it incorporate as I clean up my cocoa powder. And I'm going to add just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to just, push this down so that it all gets incorporated. And it looks like it's turning out really well. So let's have this go for just a minute. Okay, I think that is done. This is such a thick and rich brownie, and when it's creamy, it's not dry because we've got all that raspberry and everything in it. So what I have done, we're going to bake this in a 350-degree oven in a parchment paper lined dish. Now I use parchment paper because it's easy for cleanup, no sticking, and then when I'm done, all I have to do is lift up the parchment paper and my brownies come out. So let me go ahead, and I usually kind of form it and then I'll put something, you know, in there so that it holds its shape. But let me go ahead and get this off, and you're gonna see just how thick this is. So we're just going to take it out. After I am done getting it out, I'm gonna just wet my hands a little bit, and so I can go ahead and push, you know, kind of touch it and it won't stick to me. Oh my goodness, I wish you could smell this because the peppermint smell is just so, it just smells so good. It really does. And it really adds. And what I like, you know, this is my favorite brownie recipe, but if you have another favorite brownie recipe, I'd say, you know, go ahead and use that and add your own mint. You know, add mint, and make them Christmas or, you know, holiday just by doing that. But you can really adapt any brownie recipe that you want. Okay, I don't even think I need to maybe do it with my hands. I'm just going to take a little bit more out here, and then I'm going to talk about when I cover them, because I've got almost all of it out. But you see how nice and thick these are. And remember, 9 grams of fiber. Just incredible. So there we go. This is going to go in the oven, 350, and after you pull them out, you're going to let them cool a little bit. Let me show you. I'm just going to take a candy cane, and again, I use my mortar and pestle, and I'm just going to crunch them. I don't want to make them dust because that would be, you know, I like them to be a little pieces, but you don't want to put the candy canes on until after they've baked, because they will, it will melt in the oven, which will add even more flavor to your brownies. But, you know, I like to put them in after, so I've just kind of chunked up my peppermint. All right, so now I made these before, and I made a whole pan of these, and these are all that's left because my family ate them. But you can see with the candy canes, and these I made not in my glass pan, but in a silicone mini cupcake pan, just so that they're little bites, because, you know, I love having just a little bite sometimes for dessert. I don't want something big, but it just doesn't look festive. I just love it. So please try these. And as I said, don't tell anyone what's in them. If they say, oh, those are so good and creamy, what's in them? Say, oh, I'll get you the recipe tomorrow or something. And then they're just going to be so surprised that they are actually eating black beans. But they're so good. All right. Well, thank you again for spending your Saturday with us. And Cody is next. Cody, I always love to see the treats that you make. It's all yours. Happy holidays, everyone.
Hi, Susanna. That recipe of chocolate peppermint brownies looks fantastic. I cannot wait for my family to try that over winter break. It looks like a sure winner for us. Welcome, everybody. My name is Cody Stubbe. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm coming to you from my new kitchen, and this is the first time ever that I'm using it. I'm so excited to share this with you. And I have another big surprise for you. Hi, Ava.
Hi everyone.
This is my daughter Ava. She's 13 and she's going to be joining us today for a cooking demo. Thanks for joining me, honey.
Oh, I'm so excited for us to be cooking together.
Oh, I love cooking with you. So my favorite memories are with us cooking together. You want to tell everybody what we're going to make today?
Pecan sandies.
Yeah, and these are so good, you guys. I am so thrilled to share this with you. Now, the thing is with this recipe, there is a lot of nuts in it, so we want to keep that in mind. You don't just want to eat a whole bunch of them because, you know, as we talk about in our shows, nuts do have a higher level of fat than other plant foods, so just keep that in mind. But they are still very delicious and nutritious for you. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started, right, Ava?
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's our first ingredient we have?
We need toasted pecans. So we want to blend these up in the food processor.
And how long did we toast those for?
About 5 minutes.
Yep.
You don't actually need to toast them. Like, it's not a requirement for the recipe, but it makes it taste so much better. So you just want to pulse it for a little bit. Alright, I think that's pretty good. You just want it like roughly chopped.
Great. All right. Let's see. And now we want to add in some almond flour. This is fine almond flour. We like this Bob's Red Mill, but whatever kind works best for you. And let's see, how much is this? 1 1/4 cup? Does that sound about right? Okay. Perfect.
And then a little pinch of salt.
And we like to use iodized salt in my family because you need iodine for your thyroid.
Alright. And this just needs pulsed a little bit too to combine everything. There we go.
That's good. All right.
Smells even better.
Yes, these do smell good.
Toasted pecans are just so good smelling. I could eat a whole thing of toasted pecans.
Let me take the
Who
blade.
needs cookies, right?
Right. There we go. We gotta be careful with that blade. Luckily, you've done enough cooking. You're careful, aren't you?
Yeah. Alright. Make a little space in the middle.
All right. Now, what's next?
A 1/3 cup of maple syrup.
Okay. Just pour that in there, and I'll let you stir. And
First, we need some vanilla. This helps give the cookies a really nice flavor. We need 1 teaspoon.
let me hold it.
Sure.
Okay.
We have these beautiful measuring spoons. They were a gift from our grandma. Each of us girls have a set.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Then we will mix this up.
That vanilla really adds something, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. There are also a lot of other fun things you could add to these cookies. We put cinnamon in the batch we made earlier. That was really good too.
We also talked about possibly putting nutmeg into it. That would be another good alteration to it.
Yeah.
Or maybe even like some chopped dried fruit. Cranberries would be good in there. Whatever you want. Just be kind of fun to kind of jazz it up a little bit, I suppose, huh? Or you could put an ingredient and have someone guess what you put in there. I kind of like to do that sometimes too.
Yeah.
Do you do that too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Remember I made those surprise chickpea muffins? They're like
Oh,
chickpea
yeah.
muffins.
Those are really good. All right, so you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna get a little ball size, so probably about a tablespoon, maybe 1.5 tablespoon amount. So just kind of eyeball it. We're pretty good at getting close to the same.
Yeah.
Yep. How's yours looking?
Good. That's a little bigger.
Okay, I'll add a little more to mine. You want them close to the same size so they cook evenly.
But still, you can always kind of tell who made which one.
Yeah.
I go on the bigger side because I like a lot of cookie, and Mom goes on the smaller side.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Now I know your secrets. Oh. You just kind of have to work it a little bit, don't you? Some of them get a little bit crumbly, so just
The
kind
almond
of,
flour makes it pretty crumbly.
yeah. All right, and then I'm just gonna show you how to squish them down a little bit. So you want to use like a nice flat glass, And works great to put a piece of parchment paper underneath that glass and hold it in place. And then you're just gonna gently kind of press down to about maybe a 1/2 inch thick of your cookie. And I'll do a few of these, and then Ava, I'll let you put the finishing touches on top for you. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. We don't have to do them all.
So I do make people more.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna wash my hands because this gets all over your hands.
Oh, I know. I bet. It's pretty sticky, isn't it, with that maple syrup?
Good thing we have a sink down here.
Oh, I know. It's gonna be really handy for us, isn't it? Maybe all of our shows down here from now on. And you got a So Many Kids show coming up soon, don't you?
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. Alright, and I'm gonna get the secret ingredient.
Oh, I have some right here for you.
More pecans.
More.
More. Always more pecans.
Always more pecans. Yeah, pecans are delicious. They're one of my favorite nuts. And the ones on top will toast a little bit too. All right. So we would just normally finish up the whole batch, and there's about 12 if you do about the size that we made. And we're gonna put them in a preheated oven at 350 degrees. And I cooked ours for about 8 minutes, and that was perfect. And do you wanna grab the, how they
They're
turn
really
out?
fast cookies, which is great.
Yeah, we like fast cookies. We like our sweets now.
We don't want to wait for the cookies.
We do not want to wait.
We want the cookies now.
Oh my goodness, look at these. These turned out so good.
You just want them like a little golden on the edges.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I want to break it apart so it's a little bit soft on the inside and a little bit crispy on the outside, which is like the perfect cookie for me, Ava. So, thank you for watching us in our kitchen, and thank you so much for joining me today. It's
Thank
always
you for
wonderful
having
cooking
me.
with you. And now I'm gonna send it on over to Angelita, and we cannot wait to see what you whip up in your kitchen today. So thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good afternoon, guys. My name is Angie. I am in Greenville, South Carolina. I'd like to welcome everyone to another show, So Many Appetizers. This is our holiday edition. Cody, I cannot wait to try those pecan sandies. Those actually were my mom's favorite, and I just absolutely love them, and I've got so many pecans. So now I know what to do with them, but thank you so much. So today I'm going to be making a maple chili glazed butternut squash with pecans and cranberries. The recipe is in the booklet, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. So I have 4 cups of cubed butternut squash that I roasted, and that's ready to go. And I use gochujang, but you don't have to use this if you don't want to. You can use a little bit of chili paste, and then also you can use red pepper flakes. You're just going to want to do half the amount that's in the recipe. And so I take the gochujang and I mix it in a bowl with the maple syrup and the cranberries and a little bit of salt. You don't have to use salt. It's optional, so that's up to you. And you're just going to mix it until everything is well incorporated. And this is what it's going to look like. Now, what we're going to do is add our sweet potatoes, our butternut squash to it. You can use sweet potatoes. But this is just another way to use up that beautiful butternut squash. And you're just going to toss it in there. Be careful because you don't want it to fall apart. Just gently toss, coat everything, and we're going to put it in the oven at 350 for an additional 15 to 20 minutes. Or if you want to put it in your air fryer and air roast it at 350 for about 10 minutes. You want to keep an eye on it. Just every air fryer is different. And you want to put it on some parchment paper. So that's what I have here. And I'm just going to very lightly spray it. It's not necessary, but just to be on the safe side. So just, that's all it is. Tiny, tiny, tiny little amount that you're going to put on there. Everything is nicely coated. And you're just going to put it on there. And kind of shake it a little bit until it's one nice layer. And again, your butternut squash does not have to be completely cooked. It can be part cooked. The one that I roasted was 4.5 pounds. I put it at air roast at 400 for about 15 minutes. And because this is going to bake for an additional 15 to 20 minutes, so it'll be completely baked by the time you're done. And just make sure to kind of evenly distribute the cranberries in there. And then you're just going to put it in the air fryer and then just let it do its thing. And then we've got the pecans. So what I did with the pecans, it's 1 cup of raw pecans. I put it in a non-stick pan and I toasted it on medium-high heat for about 5 to 7 minutes. You can kind of smell them when they start toasting. Do not walk away because they burn very quickly. To that, you're going, once they're toasted, you're going to turn it down to low heat. You're going to add 1 teaspoon of chili flakes, and then you're going to add a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. You're going to mix it until the maple syrup is completely absorbed into the pecans, and you'll see where they start getting glazed. Then you're going to put that onto a parchment sheet as well. I sprayed this just a little bit so they won't stick. And you're going to want to separate them once they start cooling off to make sure that you don't end up with a giant clump. These are also just good like that to snack on. They're delicious. You're going to want to serve these with your butternut squash right before your guests arrive. I don't suggest mixing them together because the pecans will get a little bit soggy. So just wait and then put it on there. So for the sake of time, I've already made some. And, excuse me, this is how I'm going to serve them. It's just a little bite size, perfect little cube. Has some cranberries, some edible flowers, and then there's a pecan, and there's your toothpick. You can also, if you don't want to use that, you can put on a little piece of toast, a tiny, I don't know what the true name of it is, but they're tiny little pieces of toast. You take those, put a little bit of cranberry sauce, put this on top just to kind of hold it together. Perfect little bite size. All right, well, my recipe is quick and easy. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you for being with us on Saturday. I wish everybody health, wealth, happiness. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And now I'm going to pass it on over to Karen, who's going to be making some vegan flan. So take it away, Karen. Thank you so much again. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Angelita. It looks delicious. I'm going to put my screen up just a bit. But welcome to my kitchen here in Austin, Texas. Karen Osborne, myfoodfitnessandfun.com. And like Angelita said, I'm going to be making a really easy vegan flan. So vegan flan's a little bit, I think it's a lot easier than regular flan. Like the regular flan is like, it's a baked custard with the caramel on top. And it's usually made with eggs and either like whole milk or cream or even sweetened condensed milk and lots of sugar. And it's just not health supportive, but we're going to make one that is really health supportive. So I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with some soy milk, but you can use any kind of plant-based milk. And I'm just going to pour it into my saucepan. And then my sweetener, I'm going to use monk fruit, which is actually it's a gourd about the size of a lemon. So I mean, it's not an artificial sweetener. It's made from the extract of this gourd. There's no it's not chemical sweetener. It's not a sugar alcohol. Like sugar alcohols sometimes will feed the bad if you have bad gut bacteria, it will feed it, and then the byproducts of that would be gas and bloating. So none of that happens here. And monk fruit actually is native to southern China, and it was used in traditional Chinese medicine for health benefits, and it's just recently come popular as a sweetener, because it's really, there's a whole lot of different extracts, and depending on which one you buy, it could be 150 to 300 times sweeter than sugar. So that's why I put on there the measurement that I'm using for the Now brand organic monk fruit, because it seems easy to get. But you can, if you just get, whatever kind looks good to you, mostly you buy it online, you'll have to kind of taste it, like just add a little bit and taste it a little bit. So I'm using a smidgen, which is a 32nd of a teaspoon. It's a tiny bit. And I'm not making mine really, really sweet, because what I'm going to put on top is sweet. So I like the contrast of just a little sweet and then real sweet on the top. Let's see. All right. So then I'm going to add in some agar powder, and this is it's an extract of a red seaweed, a red algae. And it's like a vegan gelatin substitute. So it can be used as a thickener, or it can be used to really gel something, depending on how much you put in there. We don't want this to totally gel, so I'm going to use that and some arrowroot starch. But the agar is it's like low calorie, high fiber. It's got lots of minerals, good for your bones. It's good for your digestion. And okay, then I'm going to put just a tiny bit of salt. You don't have to put salt in there, but just kind of brings out the sweetness, gives it a little bump in flavor. And then I'm going to add some vanilla, a lot of vanilla. So it gives it this good flavor. And like Dilip said, usually you want to add vanilla at the end, but this does not cook very long at all. And we just want to get everything combined in here, and then quickly pour it into our ramekins or whatever kind of little bowls you have. And all right, so the agar, you need to dissolve it in the liquid all the way at room temperature before you heat it. And then I'm going to take a little bit out. So I've got in the recipe, I said about 2 tablespoons, but really you don't have to measure it. And it really doesn't matter how much. You just want to take a little bit out. And then we're going to add in the arrowroot starch. So arrowroot is it's a tuber. Let me put that down for a second. And it's actually really easy to digest, and it's gluten-free, and it has like 2 times the thickening power as wheat flour. But I'm going to put it in here and dissolve it, because it's easier to dissolve in a tiny bit of liquid than if I had just dumped it into my whole pot. So if I had done that, it would be more likely to just clump. So what we want to do is just dissolve it in here, and then pour it back into, once it's dissolved, well, it's pretty good. We'll just pour it back into the whole amount. I'm going to lower my screen so you can see the inside of this pot. Okay, so what we're going to do is just turn the heat on. I'm going to put it on medium, and then let it come to a boil. And when it boils, we're just going to keep stirring it for about 2 minutes. So the arrowroot is a tuber. It's extracted from a tuberous root of that is native to Indonesia. So we have all these things that are really like good for your digestion. It's a prebiotic fiber also. It feeds the good gut bacteria. And the way, there is a story of, arrowroot. You can find it on vitacost.com. And I've gotten it at Whole Foods, but I haven't really compared prices elsewhere. So the agar powder, it comes in flakes too. So if you're using flakes, you need about 3 times as much. You need to keep stirring this. Sorry about the noise. But if you're using the flakes, you need 3 times as much as you do the powder, and then you need to grind it down like in a spice grinder or a coffee grinder or a little blender like a TriBest or a Magic Bullet, something like that. So you grind it down to the powder before you use it in the recipe. And also there's a story about the agar powder, like how it was come to be used as a thickener or gel. Don't know if this is true, but the story is that there was an innkeeper in 1968 and he threw out some extra seaweed soup. And then the next morning it was gelled outside in the cold. So supposedly that's how they discovered. I don't know if that's true. Vegan pudding like this. This one, I'm going to get mine. It doesn't really develop a skin. You can. We're going to leave it in the fridge for 2 to 4 hours, or you can leave it overnight. I never cover it, but you could. Yeah. We're just going to. I'm going to go ahead and get mine out of the fridge. That I made one last night, so you can see. Because obviously you're not going to watch it chill for 2 to 4 hours. All right. Get that. All right. So the actually the arrowroot, the agar powder has a higher melting point than gelatin, so you don't have to leave it in the fridge. This will start setting up before I even put it in the fridge. And like if you make something with gelatin, like made Jello or something, you could leave it out. If you leave it out of the refrigerator, it kind of gets soft and jiggly. It doesn't happen with this. But no, there's no skin. Let's see. All right, so what I'm going to do with that one, when these are all done, you just take a knife. This one's been in the fridge overnight, like I said. You just take a knife and run it along the edge to just kind of loosen it up a little bit. I hear that's starting to boil. And then you take a dish, a plate or something, and just turn it over your ramekin and then flip it over and shake it. It should just pop right down. I think I need to stick that knife in there one more time. Yep. And there's my custard. There we go. All right, so then what I'm going to do for the caramel, so if you made a real traditional flan, you would caramelize the sugar in a pot, make a sticky mess. It gets hard really fast, but you would put it in the bottom of your ramekin, and then you pour the custard on top. So this is boiling. I'm going to turn it down just a bit. But with this one, you don't have to do that. So I'm going to use yacon syrup, which is also an extract of another root vegetable like a sweet potato. And this one is native to the Andes Mountains in South America. And the flavor is like caramelized sugar. So it's really convenient. So I don't know how long this has been cooking. I'm going to turn it off. So you can see it gets thicker. All right, so then we're going to pour it in, and then I'll show you the end. We're going to pour it into our ramekins. And this will start thickening before I even get it in the fridge, but I will put it in the fridge. So it's about half a cup in each. So I'll put that in the fridge in a little while. But I'm going to take the yacon syrup, and I have a measurement in there, but you really don't have to measure this either. It's a teaspoon or two, depending on how much you want on your flan, and just pour it over the top, and it'll kind of. I'm going to do my screen. Put my screen down just a bit. Right. And it will kind of drip down the sides. And we have our vegan flan. So that's a really elegant, simple dessert to put on your holiday table. And I wish everyone happy holidays. And I'm going to hand it over to Carolyn Strickland in Montgomery, Alabama. She's going to show a bread pudding. Take it away, Carolyn.
Hey, Karen, thank you. That looks great. I used to love flan like many, many years ago, back before I was vegan. So now I got to try yours because that looks great. So happy holidays. Welcome to Montgomery, Alabama. And as Karen said, I am making bread pudding, and it's pumpkin bread pudding. I love this recipe because you can play with it and do a lot of different things with it, but you could use your own homemade bread in the bread pudding if you want to. You could use a gluten-free bread if you would like to. I think that would work. I've never done it, but I'm pretty sure it would work. So what I'm using is Ezekiel bread, Ezekiel cinnamon raisin bread, which interestingly is made by a company called Food for Life, which has no relationship to the Food for Life program that we do. But what I did was take 16 ounces of that bread, not the entire loaf. So measure out 16 ounces of it. It was about 2/3 of the loaf. And then I cut all of that bread up into, or tore it actually into cubes or bite-sized pieces. You could cut it if you want to. I like tearing it because I think it gives it a more rustic look. It's kind of cool. And then set it aside. If your bread is really fresh and very moist, you could stick it in the oven for a little bit and dry it out. You want it to be a little bit stale, a little old, maybe like, a few days old. Where I buy this bread, it's in the freezer. And so I let it sit out for a couple of days and thaw, and it got a little dried out, which is perfect because you want it a little dry to soak up all of the wonderful sauce we're going to put on top of it. So yeah, that's already done. And then we're going to make the sauce. So we start with 1.5 cups of almond milk or soy milk or cashew milk or hemp milk or whatever non-dairy milk you like, your choice. And so that's 1.5 cups. And then 1 cup of pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie mix. You could use the canned pumpkin if you want to. You could roast your own. It's very easy. As you can see, I have a lot of pumpkins on the counter behind me, and it's really easy to roast them. You just cut maybe a small pie pumpkin in half, scoop out all the seeds and roast it, cut side down for about 30 minutes at 350, 375 until you can pierce it with a fork, and then just scoop out the flesh and roll it up in a blender and you have pumpkin puree. So this is 1 cup of pumpkin puree, and you can use canned, that's fine. And then we're adding in a 4th cup of either maple syrup or date syrup. You could also, if you want to, try adding 4 pitted dates instead, 4 or 5. You can also use store-bought date syrup. So I have this kind. Date syrup is actually lower in sugar than agave and maple syrup. So you could try it. It's lower on the glycemic index. It has fiber in it. So you could do that. You could add dates if you want to, just pull the pits out first. But it's about a 4th cup of maple or date syrup. I wouldn't recommend agave because agave doesn't have the kind of flavor profile we're looking for. It's a little bit too sweet. Okay, and then we have a 4th cup of coconut sugar, dark brown coconut sugar. Whoa, it just splashed everywhere. And then 2 teaspoons of vanilla flavoring, vanilla extract, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, ground cinnamon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of ginger powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and about 1/8 teaspoon of cloves, and a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice. It's very flavorful. And we have a tablespoon of egg replacer. So for this, I mean, what we're trying to do is get it to thicken up. And so you want egg replacer, which basically is just made out of starch, like any kind of starch, like cornstarch, and a little bit of baking soda. But I'm using this kind. So Bob's Red Mill, 1 tablespoon of egg replacer. I'm going to dump that in. Okay. Get it all out of there. Okay. Oh, also the kind of coconut sugar I used was this, the organic brown coconut sugar, which is lower glycemic index. It's an unrefined sugar. So you're getting a lower glycemic index than you would if you put in just like straight up sugar. So, and then we're going to whirl all that up. You could also add a pinch of salt if you want to, if you're not on a salt-free diet. And then remember to make sure it's iodized salt, like Cody said earlier. And then once that's all whirled up, it's going to be pretty thin. That's fine, because when we put it in the oven, it will definitely thicken up. So, all right, so I've got the whole, I think it's all mixed in pretty well. It looks good. Okay, and then we're pouring it over the bread. And we want the bread to soak up all of that delicious sauce. Okay, so I have it all out of there. And then I'm going to stir it up, make sure every piece is coated really well. So as you can see in the bowl, it's getting there. And this is when you want to turn the oven on to 350 degrees. And while the oven is heating, the bread will be soaking up all of this sauce. So you don't have to have the oven preheated. Don't preheat your oven. Just go ahead and heat it now. Okay. And then it's going to sit for a little bit and soak up all that delicious sauce. And then once it's soaked up and the oven is nice and hot, that's when you take a prepared pan. So I don't cut my parchment paper neatly like Mark does. I just kind of jam it in there. So I have a big square of parchment paper in an 8x8 pan. Now this comes out to be a really thick bread pudding, a really dense bread pudding. So if you prefer yours a little thinner, a little less dense, you could put it in an 8x11 pan, and that would work just as well. It'll just come out a little bit thinner and it won't bake for quite as long. So we're going to pour this in to the pan with parchment paper in it. So there's no oil, it's just parchment. So I've made it in both 8x8 pans and 8x11 pans. And it's just a little thinner when you're doing it in an 8x11, but probably takes about 5 minutes less baking time. Okay, so once you have it all in the pan, get all that good sauce out of there. Set that down. Oops, some of it flipped over the side there. Get that out. Okay, and then you want to press it down into the corners. Make sure it gets all the way down into the corners. There we go. And when the oven is hot, put it in the oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. And it will come out nice and browned and really thick, because remember, we put that egg replacer in there, so it's going to thicken up as it sits, and all of the bread will get really soaked with a good, delicious sauce in there. It's wonderful. Okay, so once it comes out, then while it's baking, you're going to make a sauce to pour over the top. So I already baked one a little while ago, and as you can see, it's nice and brown and it smells amazing. So we'll set that aside and we'll make some sauce. So a half of a cup of apple cider or apple juice, either one, cider, juice, your choice, half a cup. And another 1/4 cup of that date syrup or maple syrup, up to you. You can make your own date syrup, by the way. There are some really good recipes out there. I think Forks Over Knives has a really good recipe for date syrup. It's pretty simple to make. It's just dates and water. All right, we'll get all that in there and then get that cooking. You're going to stir it and get all of the date syrup mixed into the apple cider, not vinegar, don't do vinegar, apple cider or apple juice, and bring it up to a simmer. And while that's heating up, we have to have something to thicken it a little bit. So I have a teaspoon of cornstarch, and you could use any kind of starch, but this is cornstarch, and 1 tablespoon of the apple juice. Mix that in and make it into a thin paste. And then once this comes up to simmering, you're going to let it simmer for just a little while until it cooks down by about half. And luckily, I have already made a pan of it. So this is already cooked down. And I've already added the baking, not baking powder, what is it? Cornstarch. I've already added the cornstarch and apple juice mixture to it. So it's really thick, as you can see. It's very, very thick. And then we add to it a little bit, if you want to, and this is an optional ingredient, but we add a little bit of either brandy or rum or bourbon, because you're going to add it when the sauce is hot. So the alcohol is going to come out. The alcohol will evaporate out of it. So you'll be left with the flavor, but not the alcohol. If you prefer to not add it at all, that's fine. It's still going to taste really, really good. And then if you want to, you could also add like a rum flavoring that doesn't have alcohol in it. That would be fine too, because it kind of has like a New Orleans sort of flavor to it. It gives it that really, it tastes like something you'd find when you go to New Orleans. And Jen's not with us today. She's from New Orleans, so I'll fill in for the New Orleans flavor today. But you want to get that nice and warm, and then we pour it over after you've poked some holes in this. So we're going to take, I have a big kebab skewer, and I'm just poking holes all into the bread pudding, because you want that sauce to soak down inside of it and just infuse it with flavor. So we're giving it lots of holes. There we go. It looks pretty good. And then before I pour it over, we're also adding a 1/4 cup of pecans or walnuts. You don't have to do that. So you could leave those out if you don't eat nuts. That's perfectly fine. So we'll sprinkle those over the top. You could also add them into the sauce. That's fine. And then we're pouring the sauce over the top. It smells really good. See if I can get all of that out of there. Scrape it out with a scraper so we can get every last drop. There we go. Oh, this smells so good. And my husband is sitting right here waiting for a piece. So I'm going to have to cut a piece for him. So you could serve this maybe with some nice cream or with some aquafaba whipped cream or some cocoa whip. If you want to make your own whipped cream, or just some vanilla coconut-based ice cream, that would be good too. If you want to, you could also, we eat breakfast, dessert for breakfast a lot at our house. So you can have it for breakfast. I'd probably leave out the rum or whiskey or bourbon flavoring, but okay, we'll get that all spread on here. Get that delicious sauce all over it. And sinking down into those holes we made. Oh, yum. Okay. And then I'm going to cut a piece for my husband, who's sitting right here and anxiously waiting. There it is. Okay. So we'll pull a piece out so you can see what it looks like. It's very thick. There we go. We'll put it in a little bowl. And then look how pretty. It just came out very nice and thick. I got to get him a fork. There we go. So he can have a piece of this. And I can find a fork. There we go. There you go. That's the flavoring for the next batch of sauce. So we're good. So we have Q&A coming up, and we are giving away today an apple corer and that's hard to say that word, corer, an apple corer, and a subscription to Veg News, VRG, Vegetarian Resource Group News magazine. So ask a question during Q&A, and you will be entered in the drawing to receive one of the giveaways. But you have to ask a question. So not just a comment, ask a question. And then I'm going to send it back to Dilip for Q&A.
All right. Thanks, Carolyn. That looked gorgeous. All the dishes today look really, really good. I'm in a little different place, so I hope the technology works okay. Let me bring everybody back in. So there's Karen, and there's Nancy and Susanna. So excellent show. So my daughter was looking over some of what we're making and was asking, Daddy, can we make these things? I said, definitely. So, and here's, and by the way, Carolyn, you had a couple questions that just came in. Martha asked, where do you find the bread? And Krista asked, said hello to Carolyn's husband.
I got the bread. It's just at a regular grocery store. I think it was Publix, actually. But yeah, I actually think Walmart might even have it. And Winn-Dixie, I'm in Alabama, so the biggest thing around here really is Publix. And so we find it at Publix or at, I think our health food store, Healthwise, has it. I'm not really sure where else. It's a pretty mainstream brand. I've seen it at a lot of just main grocery stores. It's just called Food for Life brand. You could also, by the way, just use French bread, like a baguette, and add raisins. Instead of putting in the cinnamon raisin bread, just, add plain bread and throw raisins in too. And maybe dried cranberries. That would be really good too.
I've got to mention, this is a new laptop, and I'm not so good at the mouse, so if some strange things happen, please excuse me. And Nancy, welcome to you from England. It's nice to see your lights in the dark there because you're ahead of us.
We have our Christmas lights out over there.
And Karen, I think I forgot to bring you in, so I apologize. So welcome to you as well. So there were a bunch of questions that came in. Karen, will you be noting people who are asking questions from this point forward? Because we will have a drawing. And maybe, Karen, you could take a moment and tell us, because you picked the prizes this time. Tell us what we're giving away.
Oh, Okay, it's I forgot what you said. The subscription is the Vegetarian Resource Group.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I think that one is quarterly. It is quarterly, and then the apple core. It's a really really cool. You can just like stick it in your apple and then pull it out. The core comes out and it has this little thing where it opens up, so you don't have. I have one that you have to pound a stick in it to get the core out, but this one's really nice because it opens up and you can just take the core out.
Okay, let's take some questions. I have some questions as well. Let's start with James Campanaro. What exactly was Susanna making? So Susanna?
Yeah, I was making brownies. So they're raspberry brownies, the original recipe, and I just gave them a holiday flavor with peppermint and crushed candy canes on top. So it was a very good brownie recipe with black beans and raspberries jam that is just really creamy and good.
Linda has another question for you,
That's it.
Susanna. Can you use a different jam in the brownies, maybe strawberry?
Sure. I mean, because you saw that was really the only moisture. And oftentimes what we use applesauce or bananas for oil and moisture. So yeah, try strawberry. I know a couple people mentioned they don't like the raspberry, although, in a jam, you're really not. The flavor, it wasn't overwhelming in the brownies. It's cocoa, but absolutely try strawberry.
Karen, this is for you. Martha Cole wants you to please describe, she said the custard recipe. I think she means the flan recipe. So she'll make a few comments about your recipe. And again, all the recipes are available online. We've shared the link to the recipes, but I think Martha wants an overview.
Sure. First, you just add all the ingredients except the arrowroot starch into the saucepan cold. So you want to dissolve the agar in room temperature liquid and then heat it. And as it heats, it expands. And as it cools, it thickens the whole liquid. But before we heat it, we're just going to take a little bit of that mixture out and put it in a small container and put the arrowroot starch in there and stir that up. So you dissolve that, because if you just throw that in the whole pan of liquid, it clumps. So you want to dissolve it in a little bit first and then put that whole amount back into the big pan and then just stir it. You bring it to a boil, and once it boils, stir it for a couple minutes. And then just put it into the molds, whatever you're using for a mold, and refrigerate it for 2 to 4 hours or overnight. And then I put the yacon syrup on top after I unmold it.
We got a nice, I'm sorry, Karen.
Oh, what I forgot to say in the presentation was when you make a traditional flan, the caramelized sugar is hard. When you put it in the bottom of the container and then you put the custard on it, and then it absorbs the moisture from the custard, so it ends up not being hard. But this is just a really easy way to get that same effect if you just pour it on top, and that it tastes just like caramelized sugar, and it's really healthy for you.
So here's a comment, and Jane, if you can turn it into a question, you can be in the running for one of our prizes. Jane Spiedelstein says, I'd like to join your team someday. So we love being PCRM Food for Life instructors, and I think we just inducted quite a few new instructors. We have trainings once a year, I believe. And I don't know if the dates have been announced, but I encourage you to come to fflclasses.org, and then you can see when the next training is. And now I think it's done. I don't know what the next one will be like, but the last one I think was done primarily online with some in person in DC. We obviously don't speak for headquarters, but it's a wonderful program. I feel blessed to be included part of it. So Jane, I hope you will apply to become a Food for Life instructor. Visit fflclasses.org. Okay, let's see. Ed has a question. Ed Fevang, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Feving was sorting spices and herbs and found some cream of tartar. Where can cream of tartar be used in plant-based cooking? could I borrow some? Because I was making something and I needed some cream of tartar and I didn't have any. So I've used it, but it's been a while. Would anybody else like to talk about cream of tartar?
I make baking powder out of it, just with baking soda and cream of tartar. So that like the baking soda is the base, and you need some kind of acid to combine with it to get that the rising effect if you put something in the oven. And so the cream of tartar is the acid. It's the acid and base. When it combines with the liquid, it does make that effect.
And another ingredient question, this one from Krista. What is arrowroot made from? I know it's healthier than cornstarch. And Karen, why don't you take that as well?
Yeah, I'm just getting the last name. Okay.
And Karen, you're noting down all the people asking questions, right?
Yep.
Excellent.
What is arrowroot? It's a starch extracted from a tuber. That's actually that one is native to Indonesia.
Isn't it cassava? It's cassava root.
I think it is, but
Okay.
it's really easier to it's one of the easier to digest.
There's a question from Kathy Sabo, another regular. We love regulars. We love new folks as well. So thanks if you've been watching us for a long time. And if you just joined us, we're delighted you found us. If you use more than one extract in a cookie, do the flavors complement each other or compete with each other? So let's see. Susanna, can you take that one?
Well, I in my brownie recipe, I had vanilla extract, obviously, and the mint. And so I felt like there was just a hint. I think they complemented. There was just a hint of vanilla, even though I used 2 full teaspoons. And the mint is what came through it. So I think if there's a stronger extract, it might not overpower, but there was a slight vanilla, but the mint was the main. So I don't know. I guess you just need to experiment.
And so Karen's taking the next question. So Kathy is getting a picture of the yacon syrup.
It is. There's a lot of different brands, and I used to buy one in our regular grocery store. Was that enough? I used to buy one brand in our grocery store, and they stopped carrying it, and I haven't seen it at our Whole Foods lately, so I just ordered online. Vitacost has it, and also Amazon has several. I can't think of other places, but it's probably easier to get online right now. It's a little bit pricey, but so is maple syrup if you're going to use maple syrup.
Can I ask Karen a question?
Sure.
I don't want to be entered in the drawing.
You're not eligible.
So, yeah, I know. Oh, well. Karen, do you use that in any recipe that might call for maple syrup, agave nectar, or date syrup?
I use date syrup or this.
Or this, okay. Because I'm very intrigued by that. I was looking it up online. I'm glad to know that Vitacost has it because I'm going to order some.
Yeah, sometimes they have a couple different kinds. Lately, I just saw one kind. But these I got on Amazon. The last time I purchased them, that was the best price on Amazon.
Cool. Thank you.
We got a question from Judy Leahy, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Judy. Can fresh, unsweetened cranberries be substituted in any of the sweetened recipes? And if so, what adaptations could be used without adding sugar? So cranberries are really tart. As you've seen in our shows, we minimize the use of added sweeteners. But when you put something like cranberries in, at least in my cooking, I feel it does need some sweetener. Something like a fruit, like orange goes really well. I'm a citrus fiend. I'm really excited. Our next show is all about citrus. And so citrus goes great with cranberries and maybe a little bit of, for example, any of the sweeteners we use today. Would anybody else like to address Judy's comment about cranberries? Okay, there was a question that came in. Let's see, where is it? And it was, somebody, let's see. James, his wife, orders off Vitacost, and Kathy is thanking you for your response. And James, as I recall, James, you're in Rochester, New York, so I assume that maple syrup is tapped not far from you. It's pricey, but it's much tastier. And I love maple syrup as well. I like to make lemonade with fresh squeezed lemon juice or lime juice and some maple syrup, and it's really tasty. It's one of my favorite drinks. Patricia had a question for, I guess, about the vegan candy canes. That's for Susanna. What brand are the vegan candy canes? I think there's a brand called
Those,
Dan's there.
yeah, no, they're Yum Earth, Yumearth. They make a whole variety of vegan, well, they make vegan and non-vegan, but their vegan candies have no high fructose corn syrup, no nuts, which I have a child with a nut allergy. So, I mean, they make things like Skittles. You know, obviously it's not healthy food, but it is, if you have young children, you know, once in a while treat, like the candy canes. They're in any store. I buy them in Target, Fresh Market. You got to look, you know, they are a bit more pricey, but they're just a great option. For Halloween, I bought some of their candy to pass out to the children because I felt like it was a little bit healthier than, you know, regular candy. But it's Yum Earth. Check them out online or in your store.
So we have I was about to say we have a star in our midst, but I guess all of you guys are stars. But Carolyn is on the cover of a magazine, and there's a question that came in about that, Carolyn, and that was from Rashad, whom I think you know, Rashad Miles. Carolyn May Strickland, did you start eating healthy? What made you change your lifestyle? So this might be a good entree to talk about the magazine, and it should be on newsstands. You're on the cover, and you're beautiful normally, but you certainly are beautiful on the cover. You look really great.
Yeah, that's kind of embarrassing. But yeah, why did I start eating plant-based? I think I've always been interested in how food impacts our health. And even though I became a licensed clinical social worker and family therapist, I kind of had this alter ego in nutrition. I really was interested in nutrition. And I read a book many years ago called Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. And really my first foray into eating plant-based was totally because of how I felt about animal rights. And so, but then I found out by eating that way, I was much healthier and I was losing weight. And then I figured out it was much better for the planet. And so it's all of those reasons, but I've been totally plant-based since 2009, pretty much vegetarian for probably 20 years before that. But yeah, I've just always been interested in that. The magazine came about because I think it was Women's World Magazine reached out to PCRM and through the Food for Life program and asked, did anybody have a weight loss story? Anybody over 50 have a weight loss story where they lost 30 or more pounds and regularly use wheat germ? And so I, interestingly, make a granola with wheat germ in it. And so I said, well, I've lost more than 30 pounds. I'm over 50 and I eat wheat germ. And so they asked for before and after pictures. And then they came out weirdly with a photographer and a hair and makeup stylist. And they came and took my picture at the gym where I work. And I did not know it was going to be on the front of the magazine or have such a big picture in the magazine inside until I was on the phone actually with Lauren with Food for Life. And I was talking to her about something completely different. And it came up on an email through PCRM and it said I was on the front cover and she's the one who told me, which was really weird. So it's not in my stores yet. I haven't seen it, but the magazine sent me a copy. So
they took the picture. I thought they took the picture at home. So they came to your gym?
They came over to the gym where I work because it had a really cool background. If you look at, when you see the magazine in person, there's a big picture of me on the inside and there's a cool background behind me of this really neat stone wall. And that's in the gym where I work. So, yeah, I'm not supposed to put that story on social media right now, but you can put the front cover on social media, but not the inside story yet.
And we have shared the cover on our Facebook page. So many
okay.
folks,
Thank
so
you.
if you're on
So
Facebook, add
I
so
do
many
have to, I do want to point out, Dilla, that the front cover right over my head says drop 11 pounds in a week without dieting. And I have to say, I do not recommend that. I never lost 11 pounds in a week. I don't think you should try to do that. And I told the editor of the magazine I wasn't real happy about that title, but I don't think that's a good idea to try to convince people they can lose 11 pounds in a week. So ignore that part. But yeah, they actually put some in the magazine story itself. There are a few good recipes. One for muffins with wheat germ. They're all plant-based. If you sub the yogurt they're talking about with a plant-based yogurt, yeah, it's an interesting thing. I wasn't expecting this.
Carolyn's mother, Mrs. May, is a regular viewer, and I think she's on. So, Mrs. May, I'm sure Carolyn will get you a copy of the magazine. I think you'd probably really enjoy it.
They're supposed to send me a whole bunch of them. So,
by the way, I was going to say save me one, but I'll buy one locally.
Yeah, I'll send you one.
Okay, that'd be good. And by the way, your mom had commented that she won a prize a few months ago, and the way she commented, I just want to make sure she got her prize. So if she did,
she did.
Okay,
she
good.
did. Mm-hmm.
I had a couple questions, and if anybody has other questions, please post them. But for you, Nancy, I always love, and welcome back. We've missed you. You haven't been. I know you've been busy, and it's great to have you back. I always love the depth of your knowledge, and Nancy is, in addition to knowing what we do about food and nutrition, she's also an MD, so she knows about that side of things. She sees patients, or I guess you're semi-retired, aren't you? Are you still seeing patients?
I am. No, I'm retired.
Okay.
Recently retired.
So you talked about an important ingredient, vanilla, and there was a couple questions. I talked about vanilla as well, and I mentioned, and you echoed it, that it's best to add it if you're heating towards the end. Would you like to talk a little bit more about vanilla? I know there's different kinds of vanilla. There's also this, Susanna introduced me to powdered vanilla, or was it?
Oh, yeah.
Was it you,
Yeah,
Susanna?
during our immersion.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I love the powdered. It's so awesome.
So Nancy, or for that matter, Susanna, would you like to talk about different kinds of vanilla? And
well, I think Suzanne might be better placed to talk. I know about the bourbon vanilla, Madagascar vanilla, but I couldn't tell you a great deal other than that. So I'll hand it over to you, Suzanne.
Oh, no. Well, all I know is the powdered vanilla. And again, I can run and get my container out of the cupboard. It's just awesome. I use it in the same way I do the liquid. And I like it just because, it's hard to find. I don't have a Trader Joe's near me, so to find vanilla extract with no alcohol is difficult unless I drive 100 miles to Trader Joe's. So I love the vanilla powder, but someone else probably has more knowledge about what you're specifically asking for, Dilla. I just know the vanilla powder is a great, I use it in baking. I use it all the time. I love to just open it up and smell it every once in a while. It smells so good.
Yeah, I love vanilla. It's wonderful. And in terms of the alcohol, I don't really, and maybe you can correct me, Susanna, I don't worry about the alcohol because it boils off. It cooks off.
Yeah, and that's true.
Yeah. And if you're using it in a non-heated dish, there's such a tiny amount of alcohol.
Right. Right.
Speaking of alcohol, this sometimes comes up. There's people talk about drinking alcohol for health, and in the Food for Life PCM Food for Life program, we're agnostic. We don't take a stance on alcohol, but I will offer that the American Heart Association a few years ago has withdrawn its recommendation of adding alcohol. If you're not drinking alcohol, they're saying there's no reason to start, and especially if you're whole food, plant-based, vegan, the benefits that some claim to alcohol are largely not there. You already have them by eating well, but there are definitely detriments to alcohol. I have a 14-year-old. We homeschool, and I talk to her about it once in a while. We don't really drink alcohol, but before she goes to college, I want to introduce her to it and tell her that some people find it relaxes them in their situations, but you want to be careful with that. So we generally, I occasionally cook with alcohol. I find it's a very nice flavor exponent. It's a good deglazing agent. If you have a hot pan and then you put a little bit of old wine or something, then that the alcohol goes away and you get this nice subtle grape flavor, which I really like. I had a couple questions about ingredients as well, about cocoa and cacao, and I thought that Susanna, that it came up in your section.
Okay.
Could you talk a little bit about cocoa versus cacao? Because that's something that's confusing to some.
I think who wrote it down?
Me.
Who?
I
Carolyn?
did.
Okay,
Yeah.
Carolyn, maybe you would be better for that.
Yeah. So what happens with cocoa powder is it's roasted cocoa beans. They're baked basically, and then dried and pulverized. Where cacao, it's the raw beans that are just dried raw and then pulverized into a powder. So
Cacao, I love cacao, and it's the roasted bean of the cacao plant, and it's
right.
bitter. So as I said, I don't drink alcohol, and the very rare times I've had like wine, I don't appreciate it. To me, it's spoiled grape juice, right? And so it's the same thing that somebody who if you're new to it and you first eat it, you probably don't like it because it's so bitter. My daughter likes it because she's had it throughout her life. So if you want the benefits of theobromine, for example, which helps with mood elevation, then when you eat the cacao bean, you're not getting any of the fat or other things with chocolate. That said, we talk about our approach. We recommend 10% fat calories. And one reason, at least that I tell my students to avoid oil, is if you are allocating 10% of your calories for fat. I do like chocolate, and I do eat chocolate just about every day, but I'd rather allocate those calories to the chocolate than olive oil, which really doesn't give you any nutrient benefit.
There are a couple of drinks out there that you can actually drink.
Yes.
Raw cacao as a drink. There's one
That's right.
company called
I have their drinks.
what is it called? Like Echo Earth or something like that. And there's another one called Creo Brew. And it's brew is spelled BRU, CRIOBRU, Creo Brew. And it's raw cacao that you pour boiling water over and let it steep and run it through like a French press. And it gives you kind of the same benefits you would get from coffee, except without any caffeine. It's got theobromine instead, which is a natural appetite suppressant. So, and mood elevator, but without all the jitteriness of coffee. So,
and speaking of which, if you like coffee but want to avoid it, we drink. I don't drink coffee, but we do drink a drink called Cafix or Cafe Roma, which has like 3 grains in it, and you mix some water, and it looks like coffee and smells a bit like it. My daughter quite likes it, and I like it as well. So that's another suggestion to consider. Carolyn, a question came in from Linda Pittman. So let's make sure we add Linda to the list of gift potential winners. So Linda's asking, what magazine are you on the cover?
Oh, it's called Women's World. And it's one of those that you see when you're checking out in the grocery store, and it's right there on the where all the magazines are on the newsstand. It's kind of like the National Enquirer of women's news magazines, from what I can tell. There's a lot of misleading titles on the front, but it's right now that article has Dr. Bernard mentioned in it, and one of our fellow Food for Life instructors, Robin Everson, is quoted in it as well. So they tried with this one. So it's supposed to be on newsstands right now, but I didn't see it when I looked for it a couple days ago. So I'll go try again.
Nancy, can you take this one from Kathy Sabo? Once cookies are baked, are they shelf stable and don't need to be refrigerated?
I would say that they are not entirely shelf stable because they have fat in them, a small amount of fat. They are more shelf stable after they're cooked than before, but not entirely shelf stable. So I would recommend putting cookies in the fridge, and they will simply last longer. The other nice thing about putting cookies in the fridge is I think it makes them chewier and gives them a nice texture. So yes, they will be shelf stable for a few days, but they will be shelf stable much longer in the fridge. And if you want to keep them for even longer, then put them in the freezer and then thaw them out. That would be my suggestion.
That's a good hint, and I'm glad I asked you to take that, because I would have answered it differently. I would think once it's baked that it's reasonably shelf stable. So when we make cookies, we keep them on the counter. But they don't last very long.
If they're good cookies, they shouldn't last long anyway, so probably is irrelevant.
That's true. Karen, I wanted you to talk a little bit about monk fruit. So monk fruit has a really low glycemic index, and I've been buying the monk fruit sugar, and sometimes I make lemonade out of it. So could you talk a little bit about monk fruit? You did talk a little bit about it when you were presenting. Could you talk a little bit more about monk fruit, please?
Yeah, It is.
Sorry about that.
Hey, what did you get? Did you start over?
Yeah, go over. It was me. My mouse.
It was used in traditional Chinese medicine. It has antioxidant properties and different health properties. But as a sweetener, it is they dry the gourd. It's a gourd, so if you're allergic to, most people don't have a problem with it if it's not mixed with something like a sugar alcohol or something. Straight Lohan. It's called monk fruit after the monks that cultivated it. But if you're allergic to something like pumpkin or cucumber or melons or something like that, then you might have an allergy to it. But it's so sweet, you just need a tiny, tiny bit. But you really do have to be careful about buying that. There are a lot of them mixed with sugar alcohols.
You know what? One thing that was interesting about this show is there were a lot of interesting special ingredients. I wish that Angelita could have stayed for Q&A, but she mentioned something and I missed the name, goji jun or something, and I would have been interested.
Oh, gochujang. Gochujang is a Korean spice paste. I have some. Hang on. I'll show you. Some right here. Gochujang is.
And what is it?
It's a Korean spice paste, fermented chili sauce. I think I found this at Fresh Market, but I use it in, I'm trying to remember what I made the other day with it, but I put it in a sauce and mixed it with like coconut milk and that, like a light coconut milk, and it makes a really good sauce. So yeah, I think she was saying gochujang. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard her say. So yeah.
Kathy has a good comment. She puts a slice of apple in her cookies to keep them chewy. And then Martha has a question. Yep. Will you post any Christmas cookie recipes? So I encourage you to come to somanycooks.com/shows, and you can look at all our past shows and recipes. And I think every December we've done a holiday themed one. We've had a number of cookies. The kids in the kitchen haven't decided yet what they're making, but they're going to. Oh, and in today's show, Cody and her daughter Ava did make the pecan sandies. So those are nice Christmas cookies. But I think I heard one of the children in the kids show next week is making cookies. I'm not sure about that, but I think, can't remember who it was. I think it may have been Mia. So we hope to decide next day or two, what all the kids are making. But do watch us. It's next Saturday, I think at 1:00 Eastern time. And as I said, you can look at our old recipes. I wanted to see if, Susanna, you could talk about the difference between a food processor and a blender. So I do mostly I blend, but you've seen the attachment I have for the Vitamix.
Right.
Use my Vitamix food processing. So can you tell us some of the benefits of food processing versus blending?
I love I just replaced my 16, 17-year-old food processor with a new one. And I do have a Vitamix. And I remember, Dilip, we had this discussion because now you have your new food processor with your Vitamix. Are you seeing the benefits of it? I found, and now that I've had my Vitamix for a while, I just like the way the food processor doesn't grind everything up so quickly. I use it. I even use it when I'm making a cashew type sauce. I like it better because I feel like I have more control over it, pulsing it. I think it really does process a lot more than people think. I use it just as much as my Vitamix for making sauces, for making different dips, hummus dips. I felt like for smaller things too, I really like using it. I felt like sometimes my Vitamix, when I would make a smaller dip or a hummus, I felt like I was wasting too much in it. So if I really want to mix something up and let it get hot, I'll use the Vitamix. Otherwise, I will use my food processor. It more for processing a variety of things.
And Krista mentioned she loves her Vitamix worth the cost. So I think all of us use high power blenders, but I just want to assure you that eat the way we do, you don't have to have anything expensive.
Right.
If you make a lot of these dishes, I think it's useful and it's a good investment, but they are expensive. So you can certainly, for blended food, start with a less expensive blender. It doesn't have to be an expensive one. Let's see, Karen, can you read off the list of people who are in the offing for our prizes?
James Campanero, Linda Pittman, Martha Cole, Ed Beving, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Krista Campanero, Kathy Sabo, Judy Leahy, Patricia Campana, and Rashad Miles.
Okay, is there anybody whose name is missing who did ask a question? Okay, so in a moment we'll do the drawing, and we have two nice prizes. So Karen picked out this apple core. Maybe I should get one of these apple cores. It looks really nice. It's. Do you remember some of the features of this apple core, Karen?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I remember that you can open it up to take out the core. So the one that I have is really not that easy. I mean, it's easy. You can just like pop it into your apple, but then you have to hit this in here to take out the core. So the one that you guys are getting is this opens up. The thing that pulls out the core opens up, and you can just take it out.
Do any of you guys have just, I've been seeing online, maybe you have too, there these ads for these garlic presses where you they're curved and you kind of rock it. And it looks like it would be useful. Does anybody have one of those? Oh, and Krista, so Krista, since you're married to James, you have one like that. Okay, cool. Can I see? And you like it?
I love it. It's great.
Okay. I should get one.
Open the little top on it right here, put the cloves in, and then just roll it around on the counter and it chops it all up for you. And then you open the bottom door and all of the minced garlic is inside. And you just take the little sharp thing out and then dump all the garlic out into your dish.
What's the brand?
That's a good question.
So Krista is commenting that James had to go to work. So let's do this. If James is a winner, we'll assign that prize to you, Krista. How's that sound? And we'll consider James and Krista to be one. So if James is a winner, then we won't allow both of you to win. How's that sound? We'll give you the benefit of James having gone and assigned any wins to you. Okay, so let me go ahead and do the random number. So I'm going to use random.org. And Karen, how many people do we have?
Nine.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to say generate a random number from 1 to 9. I'm going to do it. This one won't count. So I got 6. So if this were the winner, so who was number 6?
Kathy Sabo.
Kathy. So Kathy, you would have been the winner. So I'm going to do a drawing now for the apple core, and all 9 of you are in the offing. Thanks, Krista. And Judy, yeah, I want to know the brand too of Carolyn's garlic device. So let's do a drawing for the apple core. I'm going to do a number from 1 to 9. And the winner of the apple core is, and before I do it, I just want to mention that if you win, we'd like you to acknowledge I'm here, or, I got it. And then we'd like you to please send an email to Karen, and her email address is Karen at somanycooks.com. Would somebody put that up, please? Put that, post that, Karen at somanycooks.com. So you'll need to send her a note because she'll need your mailing address, and we don't want you to share that with everybody. Okay, so please get your mailing address to Karen at somanycooks.com. And Kathy's asking as well, what's your device called, Carolyn?
I'm trying to figure out, I'm looking it up. I know I got it on Amazon, so I'm looking up my orders right now to figure out what. Hang on, let me look.
Well, while you're looking, I'm going to generate a number from 1 to 9, and the winner is 2. So, Karen, who's number 2?
Linda Pittman.
Linda Pittman, congratulations.
Hey, Linda.
So, Linda, can you acknowledge that you're here and that you will send a note to Karen at somanycooks.com?
How'd it go?
So, Linda Pittman. So, Linda, please acknowledge. Yay! Okay, good. So, Linda, will you please drop a note to Karen at somanycooks.com, and we'll get you the apple core. let's do a drawing for the magazine subscription. I love Vegetarian Resource Group. If you get the subscription, if you open it up, the front inside cover, Charles Stoller and Deborah Wasserman, they're the ones who run it. They're a husband and wife team. I think Charles and I look a little bit alike, so see what you think. So I've known him for decades. Somebody's found the garlic thing.
I did. I just put it on there. So there's a link to it. It's called Chefin Garlic Zoom Garlic Chopper. Chefin, like CHEF, chef, 'N. And that's the one I have.
Okay, so let's do the second drawing. They have a magazine, which is roughly quarterly. And if I draw two, I want to do it again because you don't get the prize. You don't get two prizes. So the winner of the magazine subscription is number 1. So who's the first one?
James Campanero.
James. So that's Krista. That's your husband, right? So Krista, you won. You and James won the magazine subscription. So Krista, can you confirm that you will, on behalf of James, send a note to Karen at somanycooks.com? And Krista, I think you're going to really enjoy the magazine subscription. And if you happen to have won the subscription before, then you have a choice of extending it to be a 2-year subscription or instead getting a Veg News subscription. So Krista, that James is your husband. So yay, good. Okay, so Krista, will you please send a note then to Karen at somanycooks.com. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. I hope that it's a good holiday season for everybody. I mentioned in my segment that my daughter and I are on this Tuesday. We're doing a thing for a children's nutrition program. The only bad thing is it's early in the morning, which I'm not happy about. So that's going to be tough. But do any of you guys have any final comments before we close? Yay, I'm glad, Krista, that you won, because I know you've been a regular. Okay, so our next show, again, is next Saturday. The kids are on, and they're doing, I think their theme we decided was, ours is called So Many Holiday Treats, and theirs is just called Holiday Treats. So I think there'll probably be some cookies, and I think my daughter was thinking maybe if a smoothie or maybe a pie or something like that. So, and then our next show for the cooks in the kitchen is, there's a comment. And I'm glad you're watching, Brenda. Thanks so much, Brenda. I'm indebted to you because every month you put together an appendix for our document. So thank you so much, Brenda. We really appreciate all your great work. And you're my favorite nutritionist. I love all your books. You have so many books coming out. I think your protein book is forthcoming or hasn't come out. So feel free to share about that. But yeah, I'll have to go to bed earlier. So with that, we thank you all for watching. Have a happy holiday season and watch for us. I think it's the second Saturday in January. So much citrus. Citrus is my favorite, and I'm going to come up with something really cool that we'll get to enjoy. So see you guys next time.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.